Alright, this is a video illustrating the way to make the fabric masks that have a filter pocket inside. So I'm starting with two pieces of two different kinds of fabric. They've been cut 9 inches wide by 7 3/4 inches long. You can also make this pattern with a single piece that's been cut 9 inches wide by 15 inches long. And you just wouldn't need to do this first step of sewing them together. So the first thing I'm going to do is sew these two pieces of fabric right side together along one of these 9 inches edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So for the fabric that's going to be on the inside of the mask, take the edge across from the seam that you just sewed and fold it up about 1/2 inch. So you're folding it towards the wrong side of the fabric. And then press the raw edge in against that fold you just made. You're just hemming this edge. So I'm going to sew that on my sewing machine. Then I'm going to sew both side seams. So you're keeping the fabrics right side together. And the fabric that has not been folded over is going to be a little bit longer, which is the way you want it. I'm going to go ahead and sew both side seams on a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So then you turn the mask right side out. We're going to press it with an iron and put the pleats in using the pleater. So this is my pleater. If you don't have a pleater or you're not comfortable with a pleater, you can just go ahead and put the pleats in by hand. We're making 3 1/2 inch deep pleats. So if you have a pleater, you just fold the fabric around each of the plates, each of those cardboard pieces, and then iron the pleats in place like this. Now I'm going to go back to the machine and sew down the pleats very close to each side while it's still attached to the pleater. Now we take it off of the pleater, and we're going to use bias binding on first each of these short sides where the pleating is, and then we're going to take 38-inch straps of bias binding, put one along the bottom, one along the top, just covering this top piece of fabric, not touching the one that we folded below it. And we'll sew up the strips of bias binding and we'll be done. And you can see that the pocket for the filter material is here in the back. Okay, so now we have the pleated mask, and I've cut a couple pieces of 1/2 inch double fold bias tape, the same length as the mask. So we've got 2 this size, and then I've got 2 pieces 38 inches each, which will be the straps that get tied around the head. So first we're going to put the smaller pieces on the pleated sides. There's a couple different ways to do this. If you're comfortable just inserting it and sewing, feel free to go ahead. If you're a little unsure about bias binding, an easier way to make sure that you've caught both sides is to open up the bias binding, line it up with the raw edge of the mask, and sew with the bias binding open. And then you flip the bias binding over to the other side so it's covering your raw edge, and you sew it again from the other side. The same thing on the other side. Alright, so then you're going to take one of your straps, just very quickly find the center, And we're gonna enclose the bottom edge of the mask in this strip of bias binding. You don't have to measure, just guess the center of the mask and the center of the strap. And you put them on the same way you put on the smaller pieces. Either open it up and sew it on both sides, or just push the edge into the center of the bias tape and sew it once on the top. Take your other strap piece, find the center again, and we're going to sew this one onto the top edge. Again, only onto this single layer of fabric at the top, not onto the piece that you've bent over. Now the only thing left to do is to close up these straps of bias binding. So start at the very top. I like to sew a couple stitches across the short edge. You don't have to do that. Then rotate, and we're going to be sewing this strap together the whole length of the mask. When you get to where the mask is, just keep sewing. That'll reinforce that stitching with another line of stitching. And keep sewing right off the end of the mask and sew together the strap on the other side of the mask. I take a second just to sew across the short edge of the tie here. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other piece of bias tape. A couple stitches across the short end, turn, sew the length of the tie. And that's it. So here you've got your mask. It goes on this way. You tie this around your head, this around your neck, and this pocket is open to insert whatever kind of felter material you want to insert. So I just snip off these loose threads and be all done. Thanks.